This video is what an American thinks about Ukraine. I wasn't in Ukraine for very long, just like a day. Took the train in there one afternoon. Spent that afternoon kicking it in Ukraine, looking at the center of Kiev, and then I went and stayed at some people from couch surfing in their couch, kind of just on the edge of Ukraine, of Kiev. And then the next day rode in and checked out Kiev all day until like 4:30 and took the train out. So it's just like one day. Kiev is a pretty city. It's very hilly, next to a big river called the something river that I can't remember. I did the Wikipedia on it, on Kiev. And Kiev, I guess, was at one point, like in the 1100s, was the biggest city like in the world. It had like 100,000 people. And there was this big, like it was a big center of some kind of Slavic race. But then it's always been like changing hands a lot. The Lithuanians had it at one point. USSR's had it. In 1918, it changed hands 16 times, I think. I read or heard in Wikipedia. Between like the Russians and the Germans or something, and some other faction. Or this is 1920, I can't remember, but some kind of civil war or something. But anyways, one really cool thing about Kiev that I remember is they have lots of statues of like really like beautiful, stoic, strong looking, like, I don't know, like, warriors. These guys with big beards and the helmets like this, holding their arms up, really muscular, like with their shirts off or with like some kind of like bear dress over them. It was really cool, and a lot of gold like on the end of the statue, and there's one with a lot of them like hanging around like posing like that. It was cool. And as far as posing goes, I notice all the time like when women pose, they do like a special pose. Like in America, you'd pose and somebody would just stand there and smile. But in there, they go like this. Or they specifically choose a special place to go, like in front of the fountain. And then they go like, they're all like models. They try to be models over there, which is funny. Looking around and seeing that all the time. And they have a certain haircut too in Ukraine, all the women. And I noticed a little bit in Moldova too, because that's Russian. I think maybe it's a Russian thing, but they have their hair and then they have it short up here, like cut really across, and then it's normally long in the back. And I thought that was really hot. I noticed the second day I was there that the Ukrainian women are actually really hot, and they're really like, not flirtatious because they don't speak English, but they're really like, I guess, non-speaking flirtatious. The woman who sold me the train ticket, I was like looking at her, she's like 40, but she was cute, and then she looks at me and she goes, for a little bit. And then, the ones in the sushi place were really cute. Yeah, definitely. Ukraine's a great place for the women. So anyways, it's really hilly, but it's like a poor place. I had the same problem I had like when I was in Moldova, is it's not easy to get around in the parks. Like Moldova, I wanted to go check out some river, some lake, but I didn't want to have to carry my bike down these big stairs. And then I was going around some other park in Moldova, and I ended up having to carry my bike over this like, wooden 2x4 going over a little river and then up the stairs, and it's just not an easy place to, you can't just get on a trail, a little path and go and have a good time. You always end up hitting some like dead end, and that's what it was like in Kiev. I was in a park and I'm going down a trail, and the next thing I know, it gets smaller, and then I'm carrying my bike, and then I'm like hiking down like this cliff. And so yeah, they need to get together and figure out, the city planners, and figure out how to like either finish these trails or at least put a sign saying this doesn't go anywhere, or open it up. Because there was another day I went down the river, and the river is really beautiful in Kiev. It's really big, and they have this big sandy beaches on either side of this bridge that I went across. And I think it was just a pedestrian bridge, actually. and lots of people hanging out on the bridge, on the beach, big sandy beach. And then I went back, and I'm hiking up though. Oh yeah, and on the way down there, I'm going down in the downtown, and it's yeah, I got myself like dead-ended, and I had to hike over some like, you know, they had all of these like iron bars, you know, like they were going to build a building there, and they never finished it, and I had to hike over this trail which petered out. And then I went back and I went up another way, and I couldn't leave this one way, so I went up these stairs, and at the end of the stairs they had this big gate shutting it off, so I had to carry my bike over it. So yeah, it's not easy to move around there. If you have a bike, you know, you're going on a normal trail, and then it gets smaller, and then you have to carry your bike over something, or it's weird. And it's not very maintained. There was trash and shit all over the place, and so it's a poor place. But it's a pretty city. They have lots of hills. It's very hilly. In the center. And because from the river, the center's right next to the river, from the river it goes straight up to the center. And then from the center off into the distance, it's not really that, it's not hilly, but, you know, back 1,000 years ago when they first built the city, it would have been up on this hill next to the river where they built it in the downtown area. And they had some big park there too, which I wanted to go, and they had to pay, but they wouldn't allow bikes to go in the park, so. I mean, they wouldn't allow you to bring your bags, and I had all my bags with me. Because when I went there, I stayed with some couchsurfer people, some Americans who I hooked up with from couchsurfer. But since I was trading them, and they were right on the edge of town, so I rode my bike down the edge of town. Kiev is really difficult to get around though, because everything's written in Cyrillic, and nothing is in English, none of it's in Latin. Oh, and one really, see, in these poor countries, a lot of these poor countries, and like, yeah, the transportation, they need to get some smarter transportation engineers in there, because this guy gave me directions on how to get there, and to their house, and he's like, he said it was after this certain subway station. And I look in the top of all the subway stations on this road I was riding down, and none of the subway stations said which subway station it was. They always had this word that was the same word, so it must have said subway, the word that said subway. But they didn't say what station, anywhere. It was written what station. So I guess the people know what station it is because they're from Kiev, and they just have always known, and so there's no reason to label it. But I did think, I heard on Wikipedia that they only recently relaxed tourist regulations, so you don't need a visa to go there. So I think maybe they still haven't gotten their head screwed on as far as being tourist friendly, and they haven't gotten tourists there. I didn't see any tourists there. It's cheap though. My sushi place was really cheap, and you know, I think the food was cheap. So yeah, maybe they'll be able to label the subways. But the people knew what the subway was, so I just asked them, "Is this the next subway?" Yes. So. The road coming out from the center of Ukraine was really big. It kind of dead-ended in the center of town, and then you go out from that dead end, you follow it, and it goes off, and it's a really big road. And there were cobbles in Kiev, but they weren't everywhere. And it seemed like a really big city, though. Kiev is definitely one of those really big capital cities. I think the population is around 3 million. And it does go out from the north side of the river as well. Most of it goes out from the south side. But yeah, in Ukraine, I think some of the people who I don't recall anybody in Kiev acting grumpy or snappy. It was only really in Romania and Moldova. But in the train, they were really mellow, too. But they don't speak any English there. No English. I don't think I met a single person who could speak English in Ukraine. I didn't really meet that many people, though. But like in the train and just dealing with people, I didn't meet anybody. Luckily, there actually was one guy standing in line to get my ticket who could speak some English, and he translated for me to find out which booth I had to go to buy the international ticket. Yeah, that's my experience of Kiev, Ukraine. I'd like to go back. Oh, well, I'd actually stayed with my couch surfer friends. They told me a little bit about Ukraine because they live there and they're Americans. They said that, yeah, Ukrainian's its own language. So then, since they're part of the USSR, the Ukrainians can speak Russian and Ukrainian. And it's kind of related to Russian, but it's not. Ukraine's a different country. And I think I'm going to pedal through there too. Again, when I go bike tour through Europe, I'm going to pedal through parts of Ukraine on my way to like Azerbaijan, Georgia, and those countries. Okay, so that's that. What the American thinks about Ukraine.